Similar to a movie trailer, a podcast trailer is typically a short 1 to 2 minute episode intended to pique the interest of a potential listener and give them an idea what to expect from the rest of the podcast. Think of it like an elevator pitch or an extended introduction. The idea is to get them excited enough to subscribe and keep listening. There's also a practical reason for having a trailer episode. If you plan to publicize a launch date for your first episode, February 1st, for example, you might potentially run into a bit of a problem. In order to be listed in most podcast directories, for example, Apple Podcast and Spotify, you need to have published at least one episode first. For many directories, it can take 7 to 10 days to get approval. If it gets rejected, you'll need to resubmit and it will take longer. So that means if you tell people your first episode is coming out February 1st and you post it that day, most people won't be able to find it until around February 8th or later. The best way to fix this problem is to publish your 1 to 2 minute trailer episode before the launch date, let's say January 1st. Get your podcast approved and listed on all the directories. Then you publish your first full episode on the launch date you promoted. We recommend publishing the trailer episode 3 to 4 weeks ahead of your first full episode, so you have plenty of time to fix any issues with getting approval. It will also give you time to build a pipe and start accumulating subscribers right away. Here are some of the building blocks for writing a solid trailer episode. Start with a hook. Here are some ideas for your hook. A question. This will help get your audience to relate to you and think about whether you are a good fit for your podcast or not. Here are some examples. Have you ever thought about selling all your possessions and traveling the world? Sounds crazy, right? We actually did it. Check out the Dirt Poor Travelers podcast. Do you enjoy watching superhero movies but miss a lot of the details? Then join us for the Superhero Splurge, where we rewatch and analyze the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Have you ever wondered if ghosts actually exist, or if there are people who can see visions of the future? These are just 2 of the questions we tackle in the Paranormal Activity podcast. You could also make your hook a quick story. If you're doing an audio drama podcast or a true crime podcast, your trailer could start with 2 to 3 sentences setting up the storyline. It could also be a personal story that sets the stage for why you started your podcast. In October 1994, 3 film students disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville, Maryland, while shooting a documentary. A year later, their footage was found. Welcome to the Blair Witch Podcast. 2 years ago, I was living life in the fast lane with my high-paying corporate job, humongous house, and Lamborghini. I was living it up, but I wasn't happy. That's when I quit my job to focus on my true passion, stamp collecting, and I've never looked back. Join us on the Reassessing Life Choices podcast. Another option for a hook is a short clip. This could be a good point someone made from one of your interviews, a clip from a sound effect relevant to your topic, for example, rocket launch sounds for a podcast about NASA.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes.
Motorcycle revving sounds for a Harley-Davidson podcast. Or it could even be a blooper or something off the cuff as you're getting started recording. Mic test, 1, 2, 3. Is this thing on? Okay, I think we're ready. Let's do this. Get creative. After you've established your hook, another building block for writing a solid trailer episode is to introduce yourself. Mention your name or names, and a thing or two about yourself and the name of your podcast. Here's from Office Ladies. I'm Jenna Fisher, and I'm Angela Kinsey. We were on The Office together, and we're best friends. And now we're doing the Ultimate Office Rewatch podcast just for you. Each week, we'll break down an episode of The Office and give exclusive behind-the-scenes stories that only 2 people who were there can tell you. We're The Office Ladies. I'm Johnny Tough Guy, and I'm a 6-time Ironman triathlon winner. I've competed with the best athletes in the world, and now I sit down and chat with them over a protein shake on my new podcast, Toughen It Out. I'm Betty Make It Up. I'm a CEO, an author, and a mom. I'm excited to share what I've learned about business, parenting, and life in my brand new podcast, Making It Up. I'm Peter Jackson. I've directed the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies, and now I've started a new podcast called Straight from the Shire. Another building block would be to give a sneak peek. If you have some of your episodes already recorded, you can weave some clips into the trailer and introduce some of the topics and stories. In this season of Crazy Random Stuff podcast, we'll go visit a prison to get the real inside story. I didn't do it, man. I swear. Those aren't my fingerprints. That's not my DNA. I was totally framed. We'll swing by a bakery to learn about cooking. That's when I learned that a baker's dozen is really 13. I said to myself, something just doesn't add up. Then we'll go have some laughs at a comedy club. How do you get a squirrel to like you? Act like a nut. You won't want to miss it. The next building block is to name drop. If you are lucky enough to have famous or even semi-famous guests lined up for your podcast, mention that. But you can also mention the types of guests and their titles. Here are some examples. Our guests will include authors, thought leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who have changed the world. On the podcast, we'll speak with everyday dads about parenting, the new dads, the experienced dads, the granddads, all the dads. Listen and get all the dad wisdom on the Rad Dads podcast. We're going to share stories from cancer survivors and learn how they found hope as they persevered through hardship. We'll be joined on the Big Sports podcast by athletes from the NBA, NFL, MLB, and NASCAR as they share inspiring stories about being a champion. The next building block is to consider what's in it for them. Why should your listeners care? Why is it worth their time? Here are a few examples. You'll learn the ins and outs of what it means to be an actor through the people who practice the craft every day. Learn about new places and cultures so you can plan your next vacation. You'll leave inspired to overcome your doubts and pursue your dreams. Gain an appreciation for all the men and women who fought and died defending your country by hearing their stories. The last building block is to leave a call to action. Mention the date your first episode is coming out and ask them to subscribe. You can also mention your website if you have one, or a social media page. Keep it brief. Here are a handful of podcasts with great trailer episodes that we like. We recommend going and listening to them for examples. Write a script or bulleted outline for your trailer episode using the building blocks talked about in this lesson. Read it out loud to a few individual friends or colleagues and ask them if it would make them want to listen. Make some adjustments based on their feedback. After you've completed the rest of the course and feel comfortable with the equipment and software, record your trailer episode. Add clips from other episodes if applicable. Add the same music you picked out for your intro and outro.